All right, here I am to give you the news no one is talking about. Before diving in, hit the subscribe button to the video and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates of the San Francisco 49ers. The moment this matchup was announced on the schedule, everyone circled it. Because no matter where these teams stand, no matter the records, no matter who's hurt or who's hot, a 49ers-Cardinals game always finds a way to get emotional. And going into November 16, the stakes feel a little heavier. You can feel it, right? That tension right under the surface. The 49ers? They're fighting to stay near the top of the NFC. They cannot afford a slip. Not now. Not when every week matters. Not when the playoffs are beginning to take shape. The Cardinals? Different story. They're not chasing a division title. They're not fighting for first place. They're fighting for respect, for identity, for momentum. And nothing earns that faster than punching a contender in the mouth. When these two teams collide, it's not talent that decides things. It's patience, it's decision-making, it's who handles the moment better. And going into this game, that's where things get interesting. Because the Cardinals have made one thing very, very clear going into this matchup. They want Brock Purdy uncomfortable. And not just pressured. Not just hurried. Uncomfortable. Their defensive approach this season, especially under their current staff, is built on disruption. They're not a defense that sits back and reacts. They're a defense that forces the issue, whether they have the personnel or not. And against a quarterback like Purdy, that can either be a smart gamble or a disaster waiting to happen. Let's talk about Purdy for a moment. Because we've reached the point where the conversation around him is bigger than just numbers, bigger than just highlights, bigger than the so-called system QB debate. Purdy has shown repeatedly that when you bring pressure, he doesn't panic, he processes, and that's what scares the Cardinals. But here's the twist. Arizona doesn't just want to pressure him, they want to test him physically. They want to see if Purdy can stand in the pocket, take hits, and still deliver. And to do that, they're going to send heat from different angles, late rotations, delayed blitzes, disguised coverages, the whole package. Now, here's the key part. And I want you to listen closely. This game isn't just about how Purdy handles pressure. It's about how the 49ers offense adjusts as a whole. Because when Arizona plays aggressive, and they will, it becomes less about the quarterback and more about rhythm, more about timing, more about whether Shanahan can anticipate the blitz and use it against them. And if there's one coach in the league who knows how to turn a defense's aggression into its downfall, it's Kyle Shanahan. Think about it. You blitz too often, he hits you with screens. You bite inside? He torches you with misdirection. You stack the box? He isolates his playmakers in space. And against Arizona, a team that has struggled with discipline late in games, this is a recipe for fireworks. But here's where things get dramatic. Because while the 49ers offense might have the answer, the Cardinals offense has something of their own, something that can create stress, momentum, and confusion. Tempo. And not just fast tempo, unpredictable tempo. There are drives where Arizona looks average, and then suddenly, in one snap, they're flying down the field with no huddle, spreading the defense, forcing mismatches, and creating chaos. That style gives them a puncher's chance in every single game. But here's the problem with it. Tempo requires stamina, consistency, control. And against a defense like San Francisco's, one of the most physical fronts in the NFL, playing fast for 4 quarters is like sprinting uphill in sand. You can do it for a while, but eventually the cracks show. And this is where the 49ers have the real advantage. Their defense doesn't just hit, they drain you. Snap after snap, Hit after hit, they force mistakes. A slightly mistimed throw. A missed block. A false start. A forced pass into tight coverage. Small errors become big swings. And that's exactly what the Cardinals cannot afford. Now, let's shift back to the 49ers offense for a moment. Because this matchup comes down to something subtle but extremely important. The Niners don't need Purdy to throw for 350 yards to win this game. They don't need a shootout. They don't need heroics. What they need is control. Control of the clock. Control of the line of scrimmage. Control of the tempo. If San Francisco runs the ball effectively early and leans into that physical identity, Arizona's defense won't be able to maintain their aggression. They'll start hesitating. They'll start reacting instead of attacking. They'll start playing on their heels. And once the Cardinals are on their heels, that's when Shanahan opens up the playbook. Because at that point, everything becomes available. Jet sweeps, reverses, crossers, bootlegs, flood concepts, high-low reads. All of it suddenly becomes harder to defend. But let's slow down for a moment. Because predicting a game isn't just about strengths, it's also about weaknesses. And the 49ers have one area they must clean up: finishing drives. They've had moments where they move down the field with ease but walk away with 3 instead of 7. Against teams that play loose and chaotic like Arizona, you don't want to give them extra life. And here's another pause. Because this is important. Arizona thrives in games where the opponent underestimates them, where the opponent plays too safe, where the opponent makes the mistake of thinking they'll fold late. But this 49ers team isn't built like that. They're disciplined. They're experienced. They're situationally sharp. They don't crumble under pressure. They apply it. Heading into the second half of this matchup, the game is likely to take a familiar shape. Arizona will come out swinging, maybe even hitting a big play or two early. They always seem to do that. But the question isn't whether Arizona can make plays. The question is whether they can sustain them. And history says that's where things fall apart. Because when San Francisco adjusts, when they tighten up coverage, refine their rush lanes, and rely on their physicality, opponents tend to slow down. They get worn out. They get predictable. They get frustrated. And once frustration sets in, the floodgates open. This is where the 49ers typically seize control. They lean on the run. They stack together methodical drives. They force Arizona's defense back onto the field again and again. And before you know it, the clock becomes part of the fight. This isn't just strategy. This is identity. This is what great teams do. Now, you've waited long enough. Let's talk about the final result. When you break down every angle, coaching, roster depth, discipline, execution, situational strength, the matchup leans heavily in one direction. Arizona has pieces. They have speed. They have moments of brilliance. But sustaining that against a top-tier team is the challenge they haven't overcome consistently. San Francisco has the playmakers. They have the coaching. They have the rhythm. And they have the maturity to close games with purpose. So here it is, the fearless prediction. The Arizona Cardinals will land a few shots. They'll create early pressure. They'll try tempo. They'll hit a couple explosive plays. But across 4 quarters? The 49ers are simply too deep, too physical, too balanced, and too prepared. They will adjust, they will counter, and they will pull away. San Francisco takes the win.